Hello and welcome to Net That Gameweek 10 Matchups show. I'm of course FPL Nemo and I'm joined by my co-host at FPLens Gabriel. Obviously Mariner is still traveling on business. I think he's somewhere in Gatwick Airport trying to get back home to Dubai still. So we will not be seeing him yet. But in the meantime, Gabe and I are going to run through the matchups. Obviously, if you missed the review show for Gameweek 9, Gabe covered that yesterday with Lucian arriving as well, as I saw eventually. So that was a success in the end. And yeah, go check out last game week's 1 hour episode. It's a quick, snappy one. But otherwise, today, thanks for joining live. There's a lot of questions this week. Let us know if you're on Wildcard and answer the poll regarding Gabe. So Gabe will tell you more about it himself now, but he'd made a decision before the season to not look at rank till the end of game week 10. But Gabe has a question for you guys, so please answer the poll appropriately. Why don't you fire away, Gabe?
Yeah, so nice to see you, Nima. Here we go, game week 10, getting into the double digits, and it is the game week where I'm confronted with the decision of whether I look at my rank or not after game week 10. I don't know. There's some people are already voting right now, but maybe they should see my team. Maybe if my team's terrible, I can't get to Watkins, for example. So maybe I shouldn't look at my rank after game week 10. But I honestly have no idea. I don't even know what my total points are. I haven't looked at total points because people post like total points and what the rank is. So I want no reference.
Yeah, no, so you're trying to avoid all of that. Yeah, you don't want to see any of it.
Yeah. So but yeah, let's get into these matchups. I am excited about game week 10. It's the big fixture swing, right? We've all been
waiting for this, right?
We've known it. Yeah, we've been waiting for it since the beginning of the season. Kind of like different strategies are starting to converge now, in the sense that now a lot more people will be hitting their wild cards. And this was the fixture swing they were targeting. Will they get an advantage over the people that have already done so? Yeah, we'll see. I'm really interested to get into it. But before we get started, obviously, we have a little personal note.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for bringing that up, because it was shocking news to me yesterday. But one of the early haulers, one of the first kind of members of the audience who was part of this community of the YouTube channel, Charles FPL, he was on Twitter. He just turned 72 last year, and he used to tune in, chat in the live chat. He was a good friend of the show, and we found out the sad news that he actually passed away in July. And we were sent a link to his obituary, and like we saw kind of obviously I had a look, his last tweets were in June. I saw some DMs I'd sent him around June, and it kind of made me really emotional. And I didn't expect to react like that. It made me realize over the years I'd never met him in person, but we'd interacted, and he'd been very positive about big moments in my life, like changing job after 6.5 years. And he gave very wise words. So I know we've got the philosophy, but I think what a nice segue to do would be in his memory is pass on the wise words he gave me in those messages, because I kind of want to try and live by them and remember them now, to honor him and actually remember the good times with him. But yeah, I was genuinely very saddened to hear the news, and I didn't expect to react like that. I was choking up, and I was telling you about it. It sounds like you were there bawling out as well. So it sounds like it wasn't just me, and a few others have reached out and said similar. I think the community only found out late last night today. I don't think any of us really knew, because we didn't know him outside of FPL, right? And so once that link arrived on the timeline, it was very shocking news. But so in the more positive light, just kind of, he lived a very rich life. He was 72. He always said, don't feel bad. Like I've done everything I could ever want to do in this life. And I believe him. So I want to take some of that wisdom and apply it in my own life. And one of the main things was, he actually said to me, one of the last messages when he was really unwell, he said, the purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, and to have it make some difference you have lived and lived well. And yeah, that really resonated with me. And it just kind of made me think that it's kind of ironic, because in a way, you might chase happiness in life and not become happy. But if you chase being useful and compassionate and helping others, no doubt you will end up happy as a byproduct in some way or another. So I thought it was very strong when I really thought to the roots of what he'd said. And just a final quote from him, because I'd love to get both of these across. And this was around the time when I was moving job after all this time. And he was really lovely when he messaged me about this stuff, honestly. And one of the last things he said to me that I remember speaking to him when he was still there, and he was going through kind of chronic health issues, but he was still around at this time. He said, we usually only have 3 to 5 big opportunities in our lifetimes, and the trick is to recognize and act on them. Too many people let them pass and regret it. So that's just my call out to everyone who's a hauler, watching this back, watching it live, listening on podcast. In Charles's memory, RIP to him, may he rest in peace. And at least he's no longer suffering, because those health issues in the last few years, he was still somehow very happy in the way he conducted himself, but I don't know if I would have been able to be the same going through the kind of the pain that he went through. So just may he rest in peace and the suffering is over now. But yeah, thank you, Charles, for being one of the early supporters of the show. And sorry to be a bit depressing everyone in the chat and start the show like this. But honestly, I was really upset when I heard this. And in a way, it's nice to just kind of feel like I can share on his story. I don't think he had like a wife and kids. And I read in the obituary, his two younger brothers had passed away before him. He was predeceased by them and his parents. So it really felt like maybe at the time he opened up to me, he knew it was coming to the end of these last few years and he wanted to just share his story. And he even said to me, Nima, I'm a simple guy with many layers and I hardly get to tell my story. So I just feel proud he told me his story and really inspired me to change the way I maybe live going forwards now that I've heard the very upsetting news.
Yeah, it rocked me as well. And he maybe didn't tell his story, but he certainly did live his story, didn't he? And he's just a beautiful human being.
Yeah, so rest in peace. And I guess that was quite philosophical, his commentary. Maybe he would have been fit to be one of the quotes we use in a FPL philosophy. That's how strong his kind of life experiences were. But why don't we talk about the FPL philosophy that you've actually got lined up before I dump that on you live with no prep and brought out all the raw emotions to Net That Haul this week?
Hey, we're that's how I think we should do it more often is raw emotions. I get to understand our emotions a little bit better, and the FPL philosophy won't hold a candle to the wisdom that Charles has imparted and the impact that he's had on our lives. But I think it does relate. So as we move to the FPL philosophy, I think we can bring it back to what Charles was saying. So the FPL philosophy for Gameweek 10 comes from Vedvyasa, the Bhagavad Gita. Those of the Hindu faith will know what I'm talking about. And he said, "Set thy heart upon thy work, but never on its reward." And I think that's what Charles was talking about. You know, it's like the reward is what makes you happy. That's not the important part. The reward is the points in FPL. That's not the important part of the journey. You're missing the point if you're focused on the rewards.
Yeah, you need to enjoy that journey.
Yes.
You need to actually make it meaningful.
Make.
Have a reason you were there. Like from an FPL point of view, enjoy that trip from A to B and stick by your principles and play your way. And don't panic. Don't worry if you're falling behind. And I guess it's similar in life. We all have our difficulties and different baggages across the world, and it's easy to feel self-insulated and think about the problems you yourself have as a person. But I think the best thing you can get is not to focus on your reward of you being happy, but if you focus on thy work, as they say here, and just be there and help others, I think you'll end up ultimately happy yourself in some way or another. So yeah, I think this connects really well to what he said. And honestly, like, I'm so glad we were able to dedicate the start of the show to him as well. And yeah, I think for me, the biggest realization, just to kind of end that topic before going to FPL, was just kind of, it was a bit surreal reading some of his old tweets or like looking at some of the DMs, because it felt like I'd made friends with someone from a different era, and he was never like online like the rest of us use social media, like direct messages back and forth. It was more like a pen pal relationship. It was like we were writing each other longer letters, and it was like an old format of how you might have built a relationship. So I felt like over years, it was almost like I had a pen pal who we'd written very long experiences of our respective journeys, and he'd been there and seen some pretty detailed stuff that maybe others who I know in the FPL community didn't know. And I think maybe that's why it impacted me so much. And yeah, the main thing is just like, obviously, just I think the thing that made me most sad, that's the point I made at the beginning, which I didn't get to. I said the last thing I'm going to say, and I never said it because it hurt too much, was I think what hurt so much was just knowing that, like, I can't DM him. Like, he's there, his profile's there. But like, it's like, I know, having read that obituary, it's like kind of reading it, and I'm like, it's just that realization and processing that I can't, like, if I message him, like, he's never going to read that. And if I had any unsaid words to say to him, like, that chance is gone. And any wisdom I could have got before he left, that's gone too. So I can only try and build on what he said and those lessons and continue to kind of lead myself the rest of the way. And I think that was quite, that's what was the most difficult part for me about it all. Just, and I just thought that's crazy. And I don't know what the guys in the chat feel like, but obviously over the pandemic and stuff, a lot of us were at home, and people we spoke to online, that maybe became a bigger part of the relationships and the communities we became involved in the last few years. So yeah, I'm just glad he was able to join the FPL community and share his story. Let's
and there's an outpouring of love in the chat, of course. So thank you to everybody in the chat, and thank you for for responding to this segment in particular. And we can move forward now, but glad we're all on the same page vis-a-vis Charles.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot more people knew of him or had spoken to him than I realized. I never quite realized that so many people would actually all in the community be coming out and paying their respects. So it's been really lovely to see that as well. But yeah, it's just processing through the different stages of the grief, as they say. So these are the Game Week 10 matchups. If you're on podcast, come to 10-minute 50. You can see the entire matchups. We won't spend much time on this now because we'll probably relook at it at the end to look at like the top ones. But obviously, we're going to go through each of these in the next few individual matchups anyway, generally speaking. So yeah, this is just a timestamp in case you guys want to come back and have a look. Otherwise, we go to the first matchup of the week, right? So it's the Friday evening game, early kickoff. Don't be caught out by that, guys. So Crystal Palace versus Tottenham, London derby at Selhurst Park. I guess I'll do some of the data and then maybe if you can do the matchup. So from a NetxG perspective, we have Crystal Palace at 1.06, Spurs at 1.46. Now for the FDR, we have Spurs at just 0.6 positive and 0.2 attack for Crystal Palace. So both of these seem to agree. They both kind of favor Spurs, the FDR and the NetxG. But it does kind of make you question Spurs as a captaincy option. I'm sure we'll see what impact these metrics have on the players in the captaincy metric at the end of the show. But what are your thoughts from a tactical standing? Like, how do you see this match unfolding?
I mean, Palace are reeling right now, right? And you know, this I think this goes into one of the heart of one of the main questions in FPL this week is are we really selling Spurs assets for Arsenal assets? And we'll get to Arsenal shortly in a few matchups here. But regarding the Spurs assets, like I was talking to FPL Libero and he threw over some stats. Palace conceded 1.32 XG, 16 shots, and 5 on target to Forest at Selhurst Park. Now, I mean, those stats are, and then not to even mention how the hammering they took at Newcastle, right? But I don't know. I don't think they're going to play Forest the same way they're going to play Spurs. I don't know. See, it's hard because what we're seeing is that Palace is super open right now, and defensively, especially in that midfield areas, if Spurs are going to have the inverted wingers coming in, I think they could really overload Palace. But I think Palace have been embarrassed the past couple of games, pretty much since they lost Eza, and at home, I think their main target could be to not be embarrassed. This is narrative, and I don't really know, and I don't know what the Palace fans are like or anything like that. But from what I know and what I've seen of Roy, I think Roy will set up in a very pragmatic way against Spurs, not overextend himself, try to hit on the counterattack, knowing that Spurs will open up for him. I don't think Palace will open up the way they tried against Newcastle. I wouldn't have thought they'd open up against Newcastle that way either, especially after they made the subs. You can see in the average position maps there. But you know, to go to the average position maps and the tactics, I mean, Spurs are going to get their shots. Like the shots metrics look good, but the XG metric doesn't look good, right? It actually favors Palace according to the XG there. The big chances actually. Well, I don't know. He said, one thing about the FDRs, disregard the red and green. He said that's all messed up.
So
Mariners traveling. So
bro.
there are some errors and Mariners traveling. He couldn't fix them. But
I think just for people's perspective as well, right? It's the red and greens normally, so not this week obviously, but normally they're not based on this fixture alone, right? Like they're based on all 10 matches this week. So red would mean that that's like red compared to all the other 19 teams playing that week. Whereas that's the part we can disregard. The raw number is okay, but it's just disregard what the colors mean in terms of the strength of the fixture in the game week as a whole. So from my point of view, I'm someone who is going to sell a Spurs player this week, and I'm pretty set on still doing it. I'm doing it on FPL and in Sky. I have both Son and Maddison. And when I wildcarded in Game Week 8, I left $500,000 to do Maddison to Saka. Then I saw what could be done with my money if I did Son to Saka, and now I'm kind of leaning back the other way, and part of me kind of
Mm,
feels like Son is, what is he like? He was about 9 million, and he's like playing where Kane was last year for like 12 million, but as a midfielder, and Kane was a forward in the game. So just from that point of view, I'm thinking like, like 3 million less than Kane cost, playing as kind of the role as the main guy now in that team to score. I'm like, I don't really know if I want to lose him just to keep Madison. It just feels the explosivity is there with Son, whereas he might also blank lots of
mm,
games. But just from a
hmm.
purely explosive, maybe captaining in a certain week, I feel like I really like that. Whereas with Madison, I feel like maybe it's more steady points. I know he can haul too, obviously, but I'm definitely selling one or the other. And part of me is now thinking
Mm.
I would love to find a way to keep Son and still get an Arsenal mid, but we'll talk about Arsenal later. So, what are your thoughts if you were in that position, which many of the community are? If you had to
Hmm.
sell one of the two Spurs mids, would you just leave it now, having seen what we've seen so far, or would you actually move?
So yeah, so in this matchup, I actually anybody going up against Joel Ward. So I actually like Richarlison in this matchup, and I don't like Son as much as I would like Madison. I don't think I think Son will be up against the center backs, potentially a deep block, although I'm not convinced on that. But I don't know, like regarding selling one of those two mids, I think it's more of a long-term plan. So like getting
So
funds
just
out
this
is
matchup might not be like the only
right.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would probably make it like broaden the lens and see like what works better for your team moving forward. And are you going to captain Son? Are you going to captain a player that yes has a higher ceiling, but that lower floor is certainly a concern when you have other highly owned players that are going to be captained, like Salah and Holland always. They could both be around 100% EO, right? So are you going to captain Son knowing the floor that he has?
There's also
I think that's
Watkins as well. He's a big shout this week. I'd love
right.
to see where he is in the metric.
Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
get to that. And so I just wonder. But I do think selling Spurs assets is really dangerous. Like this, I think we're forgetting that this is Ange. Postecoglou is going to attack. He's going to generate tons of shots, right?
Mm.
Madison still has the set pieces. You're right. You're right to say Son's ceiling is quite high, so he's pretty explosive. And I wonder if a lot of people are sitting there with three Spurs players. You have Udogi, right?
Yeah, I have three, and there
Why
is
not
that
go
debate of going to like
Udogi to
Gabriel.
Gabriel?
Yeah, I've
That's
considered
that.
something like that as well because I've got two free transfers. So the other thing is I really
Hmm.
like my 11 this week, and I don't see what I would do. Before I'd watched Spurs the last few game weeks, I'd thought I'd get like a Mitoma and Saka for both Son and Madison, but now I definitely want to
Hmm.
keep one. I might even want to keep two, as you say, but I do need to get rid of at least one player just to not burn a transfer. So maybe it is that Udogi. That might be an option here for me to get an Arsenal defender or even Simicast.
I just wonder. Here's the question that I would ask for people contemplating selling Spurs assets for Arsenal assets this game week, right? What's the delta? How much do you think you'll gain on, say, if you have Saka over Son or Madison? Do you expect
That
Saka to
that's that
score
that's the
more?
worry.
Probably. What,
That's
two
the
points
worry.
more? 3 points more?
It's like how many more points? Yeah, like but it's Sheffield. I know they obviously United struggled to beat them and all that, but
So
I
did
think they're
City.
just
So that, we'll get
yeah.
to Sheffield United in just a moment, but I just think like there's more delta in the
Hmm.
defensive transfer.
Like
Udogi
another
to
move.
Gabriel.
I think if I had Poro, that would be different. But part of me feels like because it's Udogi instead of Poro, I'm more willing to maybe entertain that route. That's just something
They're
I've
the
thought
same
about.
price.
Now they are,
Udogi
yeah, but not when I
and
got
Gabriel.
Udogi.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
Udogi
I
and
know.
Gabriel. Oh, so I mean Udogi and Poro. Okay.
Oh no, Udogi and Gabriel. It's a
It's
simple
literally the
swap. That's
same
why
swap,
that's why I
yeah.
like it. Yeah,
And then you
yeah,
can
that's
still
why I
roll
like
that
it.
second free transfer
Yep.
because there's nothing else I really want to do with my like. It's like I'm almost
You don't have
selling
any
Madison.
fires, do you?
Yeah, I'm not selling fires. That's and we've said this before. Look at who you need to
Yeah.
get out, and then pick the watch list based on who you need to remove. Whereas I'm looking at who I want to bring in, and I'm
Yes,
forcing who I
exactly.
want to remove. There's no one I actually want to remove in the position that I'm looking to buy, which is midfield.
And I think that's a theme with a lot of the emerging assets, and people want to buy like I've been like jumping through hoops to try to get Watkins, for example, but it's selling. It only involves selling good assets.
Like,
It's
let's say
like
Alvarez is
fix
benched
your weakest
tonight.
link.
Let's say Alvarez is benched
Yeah,
tonight. Someone has Alvarez instead of Watkins. Are you going to sell a rested Alvarez from the midweek if he is rested before the Premier League game? I don't know.
right.
They're
I
out
mean,
of the
it's
League
United
Cup as
away, but
well.
no.
But they're also out of the League
Yeah.
Cup, so they won't even have the midweek fixture next week. So like, it's looking good. But yeah, I think just in terms of this match, then you do think longer term, then that actually the I guess the perks of owning these Spurs boys a few more weeks. Because let's say you do ultimately still decide to get rid of one of them, you just get another week later this week, maybe next week as well, if you still keep them.
Mhm.
So it's like, because I guess if you miss Arsenal this week, you're not going to buy a midfielder from Arsenal next week away at Newcastle. And then you kind of then get to the next good home fixture. So it's like, do you then wait till game week 12? So maybe I do like that option of getting like a cheap, Arsenal
And
defender and just
I actually
thinking
still
about
have
the attack
Botman.
later.
I have Botman. I could go Botman to Gabriel.
Hmm. And guys, we are starting the questions. We've got Nick's question and a few other questions earlier in the show about obviously who to prioritize bringing in and all the different stuff. Like when we get to the Q&A, we'll definitely cover those. But I think we'll speed up a bit now because obviously of the long emotional start of the show.
Yeah.
But we'll try to get further into the matchups and get you all out of here before the Champions League later matches all kick off. So I guess we will talk about the non-penalty XG for Arsenal as well, black screen, when we get to the matchup, I promise. We've started that one too. I'm not avoiding it, I promise. But I know it's basically like 11 for 12 or something worse. Who knows? It's nothing to write home about. And that is something I totally can see with my eyes as well, not just from the non-pen XG. There is zero fluidity going forwards. But any final thoughts on this matchup? I think we just go to the next one because this is still the first one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the
Yeah.
Spurs boys more in the Q&As and the captaincy, and like they'll be back in. Palace wise, I just the other thing is I don't really want to sell a defender playing Palace where half of their creative players are all out injured. It's like it just feels like a easy. So it's that whole thing again. Like, what's the delta? Like Gabriel long term's great, but like, what's the like? There's almost like I am totally in burning free transfer territory. That's what I'm getting at. But let's go to Chelsea versus Brentford. And I've never done it. I've always ridiculed anyone who's ever done it. But I am genuinely getting there if you convince me that Son and Madison aren't a big delta to sell. And I think you're right. I think you're right. Chelsea versus Brentford. Let's do the data here. So Brentford 1.59 XG, Chelsea 1.72. The attacking FDR for Chelsea 1.4 minus 0.7 for Brentford. So, it's in Chelsea's favour. I don't really know how many people still have Chelsea assets, but there are some Sterling owners out there, I'm sure. What are your thoughts here? Like, are these both teams where people are looking to move off of them? And it's kind of like more a question of, is this your fire to sell this week? Or actually, does the matchup mean, yeah, you should hold your Mbeumo or you should hold your Sterling? Is it just that you actually give them another week because maybe there's a bigger move to make? Or do you feel that this matchup is close enough that, like, I guess, yeah, because both of them are expected to score, right? In the NetxG at least. It's looking at even a
NetxG
2-2.
expects maybe even a 2-2, but I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think let's see, just take a look at the zonals. The zonals aren't really popping out either. I think it's the big chances don't pop out. I don't know. This is a strange one. I think what happens is Brentford's defense has not been good, especially in the last 6 game weeks or so. So I think that's propping up Chelsea's numbers a little bit. I'm surprised Brentford's NetxG is so high because Chelsea have been good defensively at home, I find. So I see this as kind of like a cagey match, and anybody and any. I wouldn't hold any player playing in this match. If you have Mbeumo, I think he's an easy sell. There are a lot of other players with good
So many good options,
fixtures
right? We
this
were
week.
just saying players you want: Brighton mids, West Ham mids, Arsenal mids.
Yeah,
There is
exactly.
so many options this week.
And we'll get to Brighton. Like there are a few emerging options there with the Solly Marchand injury. As well, and cheap options as well. If you don't have Anthony Gordon, I think he's still a fantastic buy. You could go with Moussa Diaby. I agree with black screen. Chelsea should win this game. I think Chelsea are actually quite tough to beat at home. We see again one thing Chelsea has been showing is they're quite organized. and you see in their average position maps, they're usually pretty symmetrical. Especially in this. So in the game before, who'd they play the game before
The
you
Arsenal
guys? Before
before
Arsenal.
Arsenal. Was it Burnley? Was
Something,
it the
yeah, maybe it
four
was
like the
Burnley.
4-1 or something?
Yeah, and it all kind of all came at the end, but the before the subs were made, they were in a perfectly structured 4-3-3 in this one, and against you guys after they made the subs, they're in a pretty balanced formation as well, and so I think this is a cagey match that doesn't really. I don't really agree with any of the stats here. I think I wouldn't be going for any players here. Palmer's a good enabler, Nick. Yeah, I totally agree.
I think if you
Palmer
can free
is
up the money and make it as part of a double move, I'm definitely not averse to that. I think
I guess the
it's good
question
enough
is,
despite the fixtures. Like normally I buy fixtures
yeah,
plays, but when it's an enabler, you're not really thinking about just fixtures, right? You're thinking about long term, how nailed on are they? He's taken 2 penalties. Like I know maybe he's not on them because it looked like Sterling wanted it, and then Enzo told him like no, give
I
it to
think he's
him.
on
So,
them.
but it
I
looks
think
like
he's on
now after
them.
scoring two emphatically, yeah, you would think that going forwards he's on them.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Palmer, right? Is are you going to have two enablers in midfield when there are so many midfield options? So if you have like a Gordon or a Neto or a Huang or yeah, who else is in there? Even
There's so many. I've
are
seen
you
people
gonna
going for Suchek, like 4.9 million. You
right?
know,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
few
yeah,
options
yeah.
out there.
Like are you also gonna go for Palmer? Are you gonna have like a
Yeah.
like a
Like I've
4.9
got
million
Gordon.
and
I
like a
don't want both.
5.5 million?
Yeah, I
Right.
don't
You
want
want
both.
like
Like I would downgrade Gordon to Palmer if that helped me get like a big move somewhere else that I can't fund otherwise.
mm,
So I do like the idea of keeping an open eye on Palmer. I think he's a gift for Game Week 10 wildcarders. So if I was wildcarding this week and picking between all of those kind of budget enablers, he would rank in the top two, I'd say, for me out of everyone under the 6 million price range in the midfield. I would put him up there just purely because of the team he's playing for and just the penalties and like he genuinely looks like he just settled straight in. And I
yeah.
don't think it's just recency bias. I know we can be guilty of that, but this is a player we've watched score like a goal in every competition for Man City, apart from the Premier League, with the one place he'd not ever scored a goal. And then he comes to Chelsea. He's somehow seen a surplus to requirement at City this year. He arrives, he manages to get himself into the 11, be a key player, and then now he's taking those plays. I'm like, this is the big. I feel like I'm watching the beginning of a young guy announcing himself to the league, and I feel like
Mhm,
we've seen
mhm.
signs over the years. And this is where I'm putting a lot of narrative of my own. Of I just think that having watched Palmer, knowing where he comes from, knowing like
Mhm.
what he's capable of, and having seen him score in every competition, Champions Leagues, and different cups like FA Cup, and I think it was also the League Cup. Like he'd scored everywhere but the
European championships,
European Champions. Like so, he literally
U21
scored.
European
He
champions.
scored in the Community Shield against Arsenal for Man
Yeah,
City earlier this
yeah.
season, and again against Arsenal for Chelsea this time. Like I'm like, this is someone that I am willing to go for him over like a
Mm.
Suchek personally. Like I like. Yes, like we'll
I
talk
agree,
about
I
West
agree.
Ham in
I
their
still like
matchup.
Gordon more than Palmer, though. I still like Gordon more than
I think if
Palmer.
you can afford that money, yeah,
Yeah,
I am on Gordon, so my money where my mouth is says it all. But if I needed the
yeah.
money and I was wildcarding this week, I would be very open to him. I prefer him to Archer. Let's put it that way. Because right now Archer's
True,
like my
fair.
eighth
Yeah, yeah,
attacker. If Palmer was my
yeah.
eighth attacker, I'd be much happier than Archer. Like the level
I
between
agree.
them, those
For
ceilings are
sure.
so far apart. My God. Cool. I think we talked about this game in terms of the assets as well. Why don't we go to the next one? This one we've managed to do in half the time of the last one. So we're making
Okay.
good progress. We're sticking roughly to the 5 minutes per matchup, I think, going forwards. Do you want to do the data
This
on
one's
this
gonna
one
be
first?
longer.
No. I've put a timer on. So we're at 29 minutes. I'm going to hold the chat accountable. When we get to 34 minutes in, you need to be saying, get to the next matchup, get to the next matchup.
Okay, we Arsenal against Sheffield United obviously relates to the Spurs matchup as well. We'll be comparing them a bit. Arsenal 2.01 NetxG, one of the highest of the game week, and Sheffield United 0.87, one of the lowest of the game weeks. Unsurprisingly, the FDR agrees 3.1 for Arsenal, minus 2.5 for Sheffield United, further indicating that likely clean sheet. Like the zonals are massive for Arsenal. I mean, they're just like attack Sheffield United everywhere. Um, looks like the Yes, the FDR has the home away wrong as well, so apologies for that. What else? Decent headed matchup, 3.4. 3.4 headed chances could result in something. Now, here, we can get to like the non-penalty XG and stuff for Arsenal. We can see it kind of come up in the shots and the shot predictors there, and I'll bring them up on. I'm just bringing the raw data up here, because I thought this was really interesting. So at home this season, Arsenal's XG per shot is 0.09. That is tied for second worst. So you have Bournemouth and Burnley at 0.08, and then you have about like 6 teams at 0.09, including Palace, the aforementioned Palace. So yeah, like you were saying, could Spurs get a clean sheet there? Who else
Yeah,
is at
exactly.
0.09? Fulham is at 0.09. Oh wow. Surprisingly, Liverpool. Luton 0.09, United 0.09, Sheffield United 0.09, Spurs 0.09. So there are some big teams and surprising ones at 0.09 XG per shot. However, those teams like Spurs and Liverpool, they take 1 billion shots per game. So that's why their shots predictor metric will look a lot better than Arsenal's. Arsenal is only taking 15 shots per game compared to almost 23 from Liverpool. I don't know, like, and we talked. Lucian and I talked about this yesterday. Like, I have a theory. I'm just kind of like playing around with in my mind, and I'm not sure that this is intentional by Arteta, but I'm seeing like the right side, Arsenal's right side, committed to control, creativity, and possession, and the left side committed to space and chaos. However, I don't know. The reason I'm not really sure that if this is a design by Arteta is because there are several players on that left side that don't fit, right? Like Havertz doesn't fit space and chaos, but he was a new signing. So it just seems a little bit dissonant there. But I think that's the result. That's what we've been seeing happening. And if Arteta commits to that, and actually gets the ball over to that left-hand side, instructs his team to get the ball over to that space, then I think Martinelli could do well, even in Jesus's absence. If Jesus is out, maybe
Because
you could
people
tell us
are
a little bit
asking
more
about
about
that.
that.
Yeah, I saw a few
Yeah.
people questioning whether if Jesus being out meant that Martinelli was less appealing and stuff. Obviously, their link up yesterday was amazing, but like I would still not be, avoiding him just purely because of Jesus. I think we need to wait a few days for the Jesus news. I know Arteta isn't the most honest with the pressers, but he'll also probably be quite angry at Jesus for giving a post-match presser to someone and basically being like, yeah, I don't think it's any issue. I'm not even going to be out. Yeah, the physio's done some early tests and I look fine. He's like, I'll do a proper test tomorrow, but like, trust me, it's nothing. I'm like, Arteta's going to be livid that he said that. So if anything, he's going to pretend it's more severe, I reckon, just because he's like, why did you tell them this? Why did you let people know that you're okay?
Or is he going to confirm what Jesus said? Like, yeah, fine. Jesus already told you guys it's not much, and then bench him because he's pissed at him and playing Nketiah
There's
instead in
also that
the
as well.
fixture.
This is something that's been going into my thinking, to be honest with you, about like, and also we have Brentford in the midweek in the cup, and then obviously we got Newcastle away the following week, and you start to think to yourself like, where is the benching going to come? Who's going to be benched where? And one of the things about Jesus is worrying is obviously Martinelli seemed like it was minor as well, but whenever it involves a hamstring, it can kind of drag on, and suddenly 3 weeks becomes 4. So I really do hope, unless it's like super minor, there is a chance it could mean like a brief period for Jesus out again till after the international break. That aside, I still think, as I've said all season, that for me, Saka's the pick of the attackers anyway. I do not see him getting benched this week, especially if Jesus is injured. I don't see him benching Saka and Jesus is injured. So I just don't see that world personally. So I think if Saka gets his rest, maybe it's Brentford in the cup, and then he just carries on with every other game after that. So I don't see those threats as big for him. Martinelli, I love, and I think for a few people, like where maybe you can't afford Saka, he's someone I genuinely love. And I think one of the reasons maybe there's been no fluidity, as you say, on the left has been chaos. And you were saying about whether Arteta chooses to start to use the left and if the chaos will, I guess, be positive for Martinelli. I think it's because Martinelli's not been there much of the season, we forget how powerful he can be. He injects pace into this team, and with him not in the team, there are types of goals that we just cannot score. So he adds a whole new dimension to the attack. And I love the way he announced himself into his first UCL match start, goal in the first start, goal in his first Prem game, goal in the first of any competition he plays. He is a big game player. I love Martinelli. And honestly, had he not got injured last season, I said this at the time, he would have broken the record for most goals from a Brazilian in a Premier League season. He tied with Firmino, got injured, reached his 15 goals, and unfortunately didn't get a chance to make that record his own. So it's a joint record. He's going to be excited by being part of the Brazil squad, and I think he'll, that's going to have an impact as well, trying to get into that team and be called up to all the internationals as often as possible. So with him back from injury, I just think that Arteta's he's going to become our most threatening attacker. So there is a world in which I do like him more than Saka, but for me, it's just that whole injury to Jesus. How serious is it? I do prefer Martinelli with Jesus. So it's kind of like, even though I say it's not too bad, they're telepathic together. They're just genuinely, the way they see each other, the decisions they make is just phenomenal. And I just think Jesus brings out the best of our wingers. So if he's out, that would actually put me more off getting Saka in general and maybe go for the Arsenal defender. It's only if I felt Jesus was going to start, then I'd be much more tempted to move on Maddison for like Saka. That's my 2 cents. Jesus' injury will actually put me off the entire Arsenal attack for another 2 game weeks, if I'm really honest.
But let's say then that Jesus starts, and I'm just going to go to a couple of questions here in the chat.
Monty-Live
Evil says, Foden to Martinelli an option if you can't afford Saka, or sell Son for Saka. In this scenario, would you settle for Martinelli?
Foden over Son. Yeah, I'd sell Foden over Son personally, but
and you'd be comfortable with Martinelli instead of Saka then?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I would. Okay. Yeah.
Because you're making your bet if you do this, right? Like you're probably not getting both.
Yeah, you can't get both really, not with the midfield options out there, right?
Right.
I guess the next question.
You look a little apprehensive. I gotta say, you don't look.
Well, no, it's because I've always said, because for me, Martinelli is like, in my mind, it's always he's the second one. So like, I would never tell someone to get him over Saka. Like, I would always be team Saka and Martinelli. I would never go for. But when you add the Son equation to it, so it's kind of like Son and Martinelli versus Saka and Son, right? It's a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and it goes back to who are we selling? Are we selling good assets and like Son, or bad assets like Foden? And the delta from Foden to Martinelli is bigger than the delta from Son to Saka, right? I think we agree on that.
Yeah,
really quick question, like kind of just, and I am going to hold you to a quick one here. 1 minute here, just to answer black screen. Don't you think Xhaka is actually the biggest loss for Arsenal?
Yeah, so I don't think they wanted him to leave. Obviously, he wanted a new challenge in his career, and he got rewarded for the help to get us back to the top 4. I think what they missed from him isn't just from him alone, it's also from Partey. I think when the two of them were in that midfield with Odegaard, the verticality they add, the way they would find passes through the lines vertically, they would find Odegaard in a lot of positions that no one is finding him now. So I think he has been totally out of form all season, Odegaard. I genuinely believe it's been really bad form. So yeah, it's been 9 minutes. I know. We got to 39. I said 34. So that's the extra 5 minutes. I blame that on the fact that I didn't actually say anything till I let you do the data first before the rants that I added. So I was like, let him do the matchup first so that his key points come out. Because before you know, we might be here 20 minutes. So 5 minutes you, 5 minutes me. I think, ultimately, I would actually just answer Chat Sports' question of can we go without Arsenal? I think I wouldn't be too against it until game week 12. Personally, I don't mind so much. But yeah, so let's go to the next matchup on that note, and I'm sure we'll see these guys in the captaincy metric again, as we said.
Sorry.
We're both pressing.
You drive. Yeah, you drive.
Okay. Bournemouth versus Burnley. This one's this one is an interesting one, I guess. If you're a Solanke owner, I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, I was going to say, apart from Solanke, who do people have from these teams? Still, like now, no one, right? Maybe Billing in draft.
Only Solanke. Yeah,
there was Lyle Foster and Charlie Taylor. I did see him on my bench, and I was like, would I play him in this game? And I was like, no, I'll never play him.
No, no, yeah, exactly. Charlie trailers for the bench. um, yeah, no, I don't think there's much to talk about in this one. Yeah, even like, but I do like Solanke. Look at Solanke, like kind of splitting those two center backs for Burnley. I think he'll be able to do it. One thing that's been talked about is this is the game, right? This is where we have to see Iraola's identity philosophy come out and make a statement in this game. And if it doesn't, I think yeah, he could be in trouble. That's all really to say about this one.
Yeah, hopefully we see the best of both teams, because Burnley will be targeting this game as a winnable one for themselves. I think they both are. There's a proper 6-pointer at the bottom. So I think it's just a purely entertainment match for me. I don't really want to add much more to it, if I'm completely frank.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not looking to buy any of these players. If you have Taylor and like you got an injured defender or something, sure, like start him. Or if you think he's a better pick as an 11th man than someone else, great. But this match, I guess, is a bit more exciting because obviously we've got a lot of Neto and Hwang owners these days from the Wolves side. We've then got Newcastle with obviously the Trippier debate. My question for you would be, surely, like, I don't need to go to him now. Surely I don't need it, because surely he can't keep up 10 points a week every week on average. It's been 5 weeks of 10 points a week average. And I'm like, Trippier, man, you're killing me, dude. Like, surely not. Like, surely I don't want to be saying, oh, I made a mistake on my game week 8 wildcard. Let me find a way to bloody replace Burn with Trippier. I just don't want to do it. But hopefully you can tell me something positive on that light. And then I've got Gordon. And as I said, I don't know about Isaac and Wilson. And just the fact that there's the two of them there has always put me off both. So I'm a Burn and Gordon owner. I don't think I'm going to be going Trippier. I've made my bed. But do you have anything reassuring to us about those of us who are not going Trippier? Are you one of us?
Oh man, I can't get to Trippier. I went against him. I went Botman instead on my wild card.
Oh,
That
that's
obviously
painful.
disaster. And I can't get to Watkins, so I can't get Trippier and Watkins, the two like most popular players right now. And it's like the Trippier points are pure pain. It sucks.
And you don't even get
And
the burn points. Your pain is worse than mine, mate.
exactly. Yeah, I have an injured player with 0 on the bench. I mean, look at I mean, this is Ryan 8 Nuri and number 3 there for if we're looking at the average position maps, and Totti Gomez. And I think Trippier can just do it again. I'm just fearful that he can. But I also I think on the other side, I mean, Gordon up, like, look how high we need a no Trippier support group. That's what we need, Nick. Absolutely. Damn, it's so painful. Trips and cool. Thanks, Claire. I feel worse
I just
about my
wanted
own
to
team.
put her knife in your back end on the live on the
Exactly.
show.
Yeah, she has Trips and Burn. I got Botman.
Well,
Awesome. No
Sandro's
Trip.
obviously got his 10-month ban, is the rumor from Fabrizio Romano. So that's obviously potentially something to think about as well, about Newcastle's solidity. Maybe that's our reassurance of not going Trippier, is they're going to concede more with no Tonali. That's what I'll tell
Oh,
myself to sleep at night.
we're looking for something. We can we'll take that. I guess that is something. But I
Oh
also,
god.
like, Max Kilman is not the most agile player. He's number 23 there on the bottom right for Wolves. And I like Anthony Gordon's prospects of up against Max Kilman because of how shifty and inside out Anthony Gordon is, and I think he could really turn Kilman. Doherty is number 2 there. Obviously, he's pretty far advanced. Both Doherty and Aid Nuri look further advanced here because they played Bournemouth. They'll be playing in a little bit more of a shell against Newcastle, but at home, Wolves, they're gonna have to play. So again, Newcastle attackers are just a start all the time. Trippier, I'll be behind the couch again. He's gonna hurt us though, I think.
I'm just putting everyone's messages up as we go. So the ones that we can't read out loud because of time, we will still put them up on screen for all the viewers to see, and just to make it a little mini shout out to Calvin for tuning in. And obviously Chris is here, FPL Mariner himself. He is in the airport. Someone actually said, can you try and get on the Wi-Fi and jump in backstage? But we'll leave that one there. as we're halfway through the matchups, it seems a good time, 45 minutes into the show, to ask, please do hit that like button. If you've enjoyed the show today, found it entertaining, if you find any wisdom in Charles's words, as we said at the beginning of the episode, sort of philosophy, please do support us with the like. And if you are on podcast, don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll go to the rest of the matchups. Just one thing I want to add on Newcastle as well is Backscreens makes a good point. This is something I've been thinking about this week, is at the 7 million since the price rise of Trippier yesterday now, I kind of now look at Trent and I'm like, is there a world in which I just kind of like go full mad scientist and just say, nah, I'm going to bloody make my bed and die in it if I need to. Like, I didn't pay 6.5 million for Trips, and now that he's 7, I sure as shit I'm not going to pay that. I'm going to pay 7.9 instead for Trent and just pray despite Liverpool's poor defense. I think I'm on the same page as you, Black Screen. I genuinely think I'm going full mad scientist, and I'm like, if I'm going to have to force my way up to that price point, you best believe it's going to be fucking Trent I go for. Like, that is the guy I'm going for. I've made my bed with Trippier. I can't do it. At some point, he's nearly got the full number of assists he got last season in the last 5 games.
But the Trent bed is a bigger bed with fewer chance, with
no,
lower
I
chance of
clean sheet. I can go out of it any time, right? So it's like if I buy Trippier, I'm not looking to sell him, and I'll do surgery to get there. If I'm going to do the surgery anyway, my thought was go Trent. If it doesn't work out, Trippier is still there as a backup. If it looks like, oh, I really fucked up, and Trippier is still doing well, then I can go that way.
I don't know. Surely you can't go Trent. Well, we're not talking about Liverpool, but just really quickly, surely you can't go Trent with when Tsimikas is available, right?
Yeah, so that's the other problem here. At 4.4 million Tsimikas, in the short term at least,
I'd be happier to make my bed. Extra million. That's so much. It's the difference between Son and Salah.
Trent bed is a better force. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nehal, but I do think Nehal might even be a Liverpool fan. So, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but if those words are coming from you, maybe I should avoid. So, okay, cool. Any final thoughts on Gordon and Neto? Like, I guess if you were in a situation where you're picking one of them, they're both a similar price point, right? In that enabler bracket, like 5.8 roughly million.
Look, I think,
is this a game to come in?
I mean, it's Gordon. Any game is a game to go in on Gordon. I think Gordon is one of the best budget attackers, maybe the best budget attacker in the game, the best sub 6 million midfielder, I think by far. Neto a little bit different because Wolves attack is obviously not as prolific as Newcastle attack. But the thing about Neto is not really a fixtures player. He creates out of like individual brilliance, right? And this combination of like low center of gravity, power, and speed. And I think Neto's he could be matched up against Dan Burn, and that's kind of nice for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wolves score here. I know Podna's predicting a 2-0 for Newcastle, and I think that's a reasonable result as well. But I'm more with I think NetxG the 1.26 for Wolves than I am with the FDR of -1.6 and so I if I'm a Neto owner, I'm a happy Neto owner, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. He's one who keeps getting that kind of assist and ticking along as well himself. But I think I'm happy to hold on to Gordon. I really like him. He was like my main differential, and I had to play Archer in game week 8 because obviously he was banned. So when I wildcarded, I brought in Gordon, and I had to use like a bench fodder for 1 week. And at the time, I went Lamptey to save 0.1 on Branthwaite, and Branthwaite got a clean sheet. Archer got nothing, and Lamperty's been flagged ever since, and Estupinian's back in the training photo. I deserve that for going Lamperty. I put that out there for someone to laugh along with me. But shocking stuff. Yeah, let's keep going. We have West Ham versus Everton. I mean, this is quite an exciting one. This feels like an entry game for the West Ham attack. The NetxG is 2.03 and 1.56 for Everton. We have 3.1 attack for West Ham and actually 3 attack for Everton. So the FDR is picking up Everton's numbers this season, and obviously they have been creating a lot of chances, just maybe not converting them all. And it is giving them the opportunity to be level. It's basically saying Everton and West Ham are both on 3, and both teams are going to concede, and it's like a high-scoring game, maybe a draw. I think the NetxG also actually pulls in at 1.56. That's pretty good for Everton, considering
Yeah.
how few they have actually scored. But the 2.03 for West Ham, I think the NetxG would say they are favourites, whereas FDR has them kind of very close. I see a West Ham win here, if I'm honest. I personally think they've got what it takes. I would agree more with the NetxG than the FDR. That's my kind of perspective. What about you?
Yeah, I think as I'd agree more with the NetxG than the FDR as well. I'm just looking at the raw data here really quick, bringing that up to see kind of where what some of the advantages are for Everton and West Ham respectively. Let's see, West Ham's home. I mean, their data, like Everton have created 19. Oh no, that's at home. 19 big chances at home this season, which is insane. Only 9. Everton have created 9 big chances away in 4 games, so they're about two per game. And West Ham similar, 10 and 4. So I see them as pretty close here. I think what's really I would align more with NetxG, and I think what's the one thing that's dragging Everton down versus West Ham is the shots on target goal predictor. We see that their finishing has been much poorer than West Ham's. When you compare it to the shots matchup goal predictor, it actually slightly. I mean, it's basically the same. They're almost exactly equal. And then when you get to shots on target, it very much favors West Ham. So I think just West Ham being clinical. And Jared Bowen, I do see Jared Bowen kind of getting that, being isolated kind of in that kind of like right half space. I think I agree. It's time to get in on West Ham, but you can't have them all, right? So if you go for Bowen, then you're not going for Watkins or you're not going for Arsenal. So
I
like, how
made
do we
this bed. I
prioritize
went
these?
Bowen, and now I can't go to Matoma because I want to keep a Spurs mid. So it's like, even if I do still sell Madison this week to get
Mhm.
Saka, that means I don't get Matoma. I'm now with Bowen. In what universe am I going to use a free transfer to sell Bowen this week for Matoma this week? Like, it's not going to happen. And Gordon, I've also made that bed, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
these are
yeah,
not
yeah.
players I can sell. Like, surely I wildcarded to not have fires. So maybe it's a good thing I've come into this game week with no fires. Maybe it
I
means the wildcard kind of worked. It's my first 2 consecutive green arrows this season. I've only had 3 green arrows this year, and 2 of them were the last 2 weeks, the wild card and the week after the wild card. Those are my like, only 2
I
good
mean,
green arrows.
I just want to repeat back to you what you just said so you hear it. Maybe coming into this game week with no fires is a good thing.
Yeah, but because
It's
I've
a
got
good
2
thing to
free
not have
transfers,
fires.
but I really want to like. I think it's what I'm trying to emphasize is I can't get all the players I want, and they're all bloody midfielders. Every single one of them is a midfielder, and maybe that
Right.
goes back to that whole Palmer debate earlier. Like, do I really want a midfield slot on that with those fixtures? And I'm not sure I would. What about West Ham defensively? Because obviously a lot of us have Areola, and it seems like it's finally his game to start now that Turner's done his bit, the baton has been
Mm.
passed. What about those who want to go in on like an Aguard or a Sufal or even a Zuma? We were talking about buying Gabriel or Simicast.
Mm.
How do you feel the West Ham defenders kind of fall into that? Or maybe that's one to look at when we look at the next 5 data or something.
I mean, West Ham defensively at home, they're conceding about 3 big chances a game, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't good, obviously. And I think like Everton take a fair number of shots. And let's see, shots conceded here. 48 shots in the box conceded in 4 fixtures. So we're looking at about 12 shots in the box a game conceded. I think Everton have they've limited the damage with kind of systemic organization, but they can be broken down. Certainly, they're especially their like Sofal and Emerson can get isolated on the flanks there. But what's showing up for Everton here is the central matchup and central and right matchup. So Dwight McNeil will likely be on the left. So we're looking at Jack Harrison and Calvert Lewin again, and they could definitely ruin West Ham's clean sheet. I would not be looking to West Ham defense myself.
Fine. No, that's a fair answer. I think that kind of answers maybe Black Screen's question of if you were moving from Udogi this week, would you move for Sufal? And it sounds like you would not. And I guess especially
Yeah.
not if you've already got the new the West Ham goalkeeper. So there's a lot of people in the chat saying they're doubled up and they're going to play both this week. So that'd be interesting to keep an eye on. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. We'll go to the next matchup. We're slowly making progress here. Aston Villa versus Luton. This must be a tough one for you to talk about out loud as a non-Watkins owner. So obviously NetxG 2.75 for Aston Villa is a bit nuts. Don't see it
It's
that
the
high very
highest.
often. Is it the highest of the whole game week? Wow.
Yeah.
And only 0.9 for Luton. The FDR 5.6 attack for Villa, minus 1.2 for Luton. So yeah, everything seems to just imply like an absolute, just I don't even know. I don't want to say it, but like just a smash and grab. Like we're talking like 4 or 5 goals from Villa is possible here, and they've shown they can do it. They've done it to a few teams this season. They've had a few games where Emery's come out and like they just bombarded the opponent with crazy goals. They got competition. They got depth suddenly. They got players on the bench coming on like Leon Bailey. Like, yo, what happened to my starting spot? Like, I better score a goal too. Like, this is the whole party out there. Like, they're having a great time over there, right? So, how does that make you feel? What do you think about this matchup?
Villa have scored at home this season. They've scored 17 goals with an XG, non-penalty XG of 7.36.
Wow. So
17 goals.
That's crazy. How many games at home have there been? Like 3 or 4? Maybe
They've played
4?
4. They're averaging like
17.
four and a quarter goals per game.
Oh God!
At
People were
home.
telling me they're not captaining Watkins because Luton will play a deep block. This
I mean,
data looks a lot
people
better
like,
to me than they
well,
said.
people like me, if you can't get to Watkins, since I can't get to Watkins, I'm going to tell you that they can't keep up that overperformance.
Yeah.
They can't overperform the XG for that long. I mean, I think Aston Villa, especially at home, they're so obvious. I think Watkins is ridiculous right now. And I can't get to him. So here's for those of us that can't get to Watkins, here's the talk us off a cliff narrative, trying not to be afraid of Watkins when deep down we know we really are. So the one thing I'll say is Diaby has been playing a little bit wider lately, and he's been an enabler for so many other players. He's creating space for midfielders that are coming in. He's linking play for Watkins to get in the goals, and then when the play breaks down, he'll come back inside and he'll show for the ball, and nobody ever passes him the ball. He was pissed last game when he was subbed off, and he didn't really have any opportunities. Nobody played him anything. He was upset, and so I think in an easy matchup for such a key player, Diaby, the things he does for Villa are key. I think there will be more for him in this game. So I'm just hoping Diaby can somewhat cover Watkins, I guess is the thing, what I'm telling myself. Obviously, recently that hasn't been the case, but recently things switched. They switched towards Watkins, and they switched towards an overperformance in stats. So those are two things that changed about 3 or 4 game weeks ago. I don't expect that big swing to continue all season. Could it continue in this game? Absolutely, and I could be totally punished for it. But I think owning Diaby, that initial plan from my wildcard in game week 8, if that's the plan that you were on, I think you go into this game week feeling really good that Diaby will get his, just like he did at the beginning of the season. He's not going to be shut out for the rest of the season. And the other thing I'll say is that area where Diaby plays. So last game week, I really liked Morgan Gibbs-White because he plays kind of on that right side but forward. And that area has always been, if you look at Luton's average position map, look at their left back area. That area between from that left side towards their left half space. So the right side for
There's a bit
that
of
Diaby
space,
side
yeah.
is really open, and I think Diaby's going to get a ton of opportunities, getting that center back isolated. I don't remember who that is. that center back's name right now, but so I'm quite bullish on Diaby, and I'm scared shitless of Watkins. So both things are true.
I love that. So both things are true. I think obviously we've got to look at not every team will do like what Brighton did against Villa. It's quite suicidal. So some of these numbers, they are definitely probably inflated or overperforming, but you might argue it's because of the way their opponents decided to face them fire against fire, and they went completely wrong. I don't think playing a high line against this Aston Villa team is going to work out for most people. So yeah, it's a tough one here. So, and let's not forget they were also battering teams in Europe too. It's not just in the Prem. They've been scoring everywhere this year, like it's nuts. I have double Villa. I was actually quite gutted on my wildcard time about DRB because I didn't know like his fitness status, and I felt like I couldn't go there to on the wildcard not knowing if he was fit. So I did luckily in that situation get Watkins and Cash. Cash is someone who I kind of feel like he's out of position, like he's playing in midfield, but
yeah,
equally I'm not sure how long that will go. So as long as he's doing that, I'll hold on to him. But if I see him just become a defender again, and I think if you're new to the Villa defense, Pau Torres at 4.5 million, I think now it's like a 0.5 million difference between him and Cash. If you see that by the time you want to get a Villa defender, Cash isn't playing out of position, I would maybe reassess and go a bit cheaper. Maybe even on the wild card this week, I would go cheaper than Cash. I like Cash just because he's out of position, but ultimately, I would much prefer a Gabriel or a Simicast there, I think, if I was to repick now and I had the opportunity. So that's my 2 cents on the Villa defense. There is a question for you here, actually, about Villa before we move on. It's about from 1FDE. I thought we'd answer this now about Douglas Luiz. I thought it was an interesting topic. But yeah, why don't you, if there's anything you want to say first about the matchup, and then we
just really quickly on Cash, I do expect him to be more advanced against the smaller sides like this. Against West Ham, he was basically playing center back, so he didn't get forward very much against West Ham, which was a little bit surprising, maybe concerning. I'm a recent Cash owner, and
I've not caught any balls. Like I'm like, should I just get rid? Like I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's
not in this fixture. Like I'm not going to sell this week,
but I'm wondering if people are like looking to buy, for example, like if you can't get to Watkins or something like that, if you're looking to buy Cash now, it's a good fixture to buy him for. It's just whether the long-term value has probably diminished a little bit.
I think it has for me as well. So on Douglas Luiz, for those who can't afford a DRB or even a Watkins and they just need some kind of enabler. We were talking about all the enablers earlier, like Palmer, Gordon, Neto, Souček even, right? I think he's written David Luiz, but I'll forgive you for that. Good old David Luiz. I remember him in the back line with his fake crocodile tears. I don't know if you've ever seen that photo of David Luiz, Gabe, where he's laying down by the corner flag in a Chelsea shirt with his big afro at the time. And he's just there like laughing, but the ref's like giving someone a yellow behind him, but he's like on the floor cracking up because he's just there like, fuck it, I'm going to overreact and get this guy a card. I love that Brazilian madness there sometimes. But Douglas Luiz from Villa on penalties we've seen obviously this season. Do you know that he broke the record? He scored in 6 consecutive home games. He's like come and caught up that record now in the Prem. So I'm like, damn, like where did that come from? Like of all the players, because his non-penalty XG, like I think 2 or 3 of his goals have been penalties, and the non-penalty XG in general is nothing to write home about. I don't think personally I'd go there. I'd still want to be getting one of Watkins or DRB. But if it's in addition to those guys, if you're going for like a Watkins and a Douglas Luiz or a DRB and a Douglas Luiz, then I see nothing wrong with him. But do you feel that the penalties and the corners and all the stuff he's doing, is he worth a discussion? Like, or do you still feel that DRB that you have, for example, is worth the extra outlay in funds?
I mean, so I wouldn't compare Douglas Luiz to Diaby. I think the different price points make them like different conversations. I compare Douglas Luiz to like Anthony Gordon, who's 5.6, and I think Anthony Gordon just blows Douglas Luiz out of the water.
It's a big difference in position. You got the front three of a Newcastle team demolishing teams, including PSG. And then you got like the CDM, like just because he's got penalties and free kicks from Villa. Like I know Villa are also scoring tons of goals, but I'll back the Newcastle boy personally. But I don't know if you can
Exactly.
stretch that far 1 FTE. So let us know what your budget constraints might be, and we'll come back to you in the live Q&A.
And I actually shout out to FPL Discomfort. Kieran has been shouting Douglas Luiz for a while. I think I talked him out of it, and I'm a little embarrassed about that because I don't know if he brought him in the end or not. But
I think he
he would
avoided
have
it in
hauled with
the
him.
end. Yeah,
Did he avoid it? Damn it! Sorry, buddy.
I think he's blaming us. That's why he's probably not here live tonight. He's hating on
It's
us.
fair.
He's hating on
He's
us.
hating on us. He's in a spaces hating on us.
He's somewhere in the spaces cussing us down. No, don't worry. I was just joking. 1FT got me a chance to talk about Douglas Luiz. It's all good. So he has a Watkins, or she has Watkins and Cash. So it will be Douglas Luiz on top of them. So I don't mind it if it's not instead of those players. But yeah, I'm not so sure.
But if
we'll
you have
come back
Watkins and Cash, I think I would definitely go Gordon.
Yeah, if you can. And then we've got Neto or Louise on a wild card from Grady.
Oof.
I would still go Neto, but I guess both our answer is Gordon. So sorry, Grady, that's the best we can do. I think we're both basically saying Gordon, then Neto, then Louise. We're still saying what we said to Discomfort, which is it won't last. If people are saying Trippier won't last and Watkins won't last, sure as shit, I'm going to say Douglas Luiz won't last. I'm sorry, like of all three of them, the one least likely to last is him. So
is he on 4 yellows? He might be on 4 yellows too. Combs saying he's on 4 yellows, which makes sense. This guy loves a yellow card.
He loves a foul. It's a bit like Gordon himself, who obviously, thank God, he's served the first suspension. I'll sell him when he gets the 2-game ban for the next suspension.
Although I think goals from corners should be 10 points.
Oh God, he did score one against Arsenal.
Then Douglas Luiz would remember that one? That was sick.
That was pretty fun. That was a pretty mad goal. Hassan, we started your question. We will come to it in the live Q&A at the end. I'm just starring some of these questions so we don't miss them after. Okay, cool. All right, let's go to the next matchup. We've got a couple more to go. This was very exciting. Brighton versus Fulham. I feel like everyone's blinded by Villa versus Luton, and then obviously we got Arsenal against Sheffield. There's some really good matchups this week. I've not really seen many people talking about bringing in Brighton assets this week, so let us know in the chat if you are. Obviously, we mentioned there's been the injury to Solly March. That has a bit of an impact, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how that might change things. Just from a data point of view, real quick, NetxG for Brighton 1.5, Fulham 1.17. However, on the FDR, it's actually 4.3 for Brighton's attack to just 0.5 for Fulham's attack. Sorry, Colm. I know every week we say we'll spare Fulham, but this is definitely a game I see Brighton running rampant. I apologize in advance. I do reckon they won't get the clean sheet, so maybe Willian or someone will get you a goal. Andres Pereira might do something. But overall, do you feel this matchup suits Brighton? And what are your thoughts on the injuries? Obviously, to Solly March, and there's been the emergence of another 5 million budget enabler, Adingra. And he's obviously, maybe with the March injury, someone we need to pay a bit more attention towards.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Adingra has started. He's been starting, right?
Even without March injured, yeah.
Even without, yeah. So that's interesting. But I think the biggest concern with Brighton is what's happening with their left back position. Who's going to play that left back, right? Because we know that Brighton, like, and it shows right there in the zonal matchup, 4.9 on the left, 4.9 in the center as well, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a moment. But that left zonal matchup, Brighton create from the left and withhold the right, and then they send like a winger like Solly March when he was playing there in space, but without any creator on the left hand side, I don't know what they're gonna do. They're all injured, right? Estupiñán is out.
So he was in the training photos, but the photos look like individual training from what I could see. So I wouldn't hold my breath out for Estupiñán this week, and it might be international break, like game week 12 by the time we see him. So he's a tough one, but I think some people still own him. I wouldn't be selling him now knowing he's training.
I own him.
Exactly. I wouldn't be selling him.
And I'm not selling.
Holding on. Yeah, I'll be holding on.
Yeah.
Just
for sure. He's a definite hold. But what I'm getting at is I think Brighton's attack in general suffers because they don't have that bombing creativity from the left-hand side, and they're going to have to rely on Mitoma to create for himself, or like the players to be kind of individual. So Mitoma to create chaos on the left-hand side, Adingra to create chaos on the right-hand side, even if it is Adingra. It could be Ansu Fati playing there on that right hand side as well, who's
Yeah.
more accustomed to wing play.
Like we know
So
that he's gonna play like 4 or 5 different players out of position if he has to. Like people were asking me
mhm,
about Ferguson, 6 million, but he's been very hesitant, De Zerbi, to like overuse Ferguson at all. And he's talked about it in presses too. So like he's got Welbeck competing with him. I wouldn't be surprised if Pedro shows up at some point within this all. I know he's got some hesitancy about Pedro too.
Welbeck's injured as
But
well, I think.
so I think that was the news. Someone was saying Welbeck's finally out for a substantial period of time, and maybe this
Yeah.
makes Ferguson more appealing. But then I see a world in where De Zerbi still plays like Pedro there instead of Ferguson one random week, or before you know it, like Pedro is playing right wing instead of Adingra, and like I just feel like Mitoma is like I just feel like so much more assured, and I do feel he is their best attacker. So part of me is like, it's that whole thing I was saying about I wanted Saka from Arsenal, not Martinelli. Like I really want Mitoma. Ferguson's cool, but I'd want him as like
Mhm.
a second Brighton attacker. So there's a world in which like if you wanted to get him, I'd maybe go there. But I personally, at this stage, as it stands for me, it's like Mitoma, Ferguson, Adingra. That's like my order. And I know that in the chat
Mhm.
you're asking about João Pedro Black Screen. As a previous owner who held him when everyone else sold, um, I will not be going back there. I just can't do that to myself.
I think right now Matoma, because he's a sure thing. Although I think somebody mentioned, oh, Hassan says I think people are forgetting Matoma could be benched for Fati. I don't think so. Not right now. Not with the injuries. I don't think that's the concern. I think what we don't know is what's going to happen on that right hand side. If it's going to be Fati, Adingra, or some kind of combination. We also don't know what's going to happen with Pedro and Fati. If there's going to be some rotation there, because they could even
And you
go
got
with the two up
Boanetta as
front.
well. You got Boanetta as well, another guy waiting
I
there,
think
lurking to come
Buonanotte
on.
is he's
Buonanotte.
still injured, right? He's long
I
term
think he's
injury.
no, I think he's back, isn't he?
Is he? Oh, I hadn't
Well,
heard
maybe
that.
I'm
So
wrong, but
he,
I'll check into that.
if he is back, he plays on the right hand side as well. So I think it's a bit of a wait and see for Brighton. Other than Matoma, I think Matoma's the one. If pardon me, if you were planning on Brighton, Matoma's the one to get in on
Yeah,
at the
so I'm
moment.
looking.
But Brighton
So
are
I'm looking at
weird
the
because
injury
we always.
table, by the way.
Hmm,
The only so March and Welbeck have a no return date. Those are like currently
mhm.
being assessed. They look like long term injuries. And yeah, he's not here. Bonanete is not here. He's back. Yeah. So there's just so much going on in that team. I don't know what I'm buying. And after the Pedro experience, knowing I really prefer Matoma as well, like I captained Matoma last season in a game week. Like I love him. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna play this Brighton roulette again. Like I am more happy to just skip Brighton outright than go for someone other than Matoma. But that's just the way I'm kind of approaching it.
I
Obviously, other people might think otherwise, but
I agree, and I think there's a case to be made that the loss of the left back. We saw what happened with teams that create on the left with Brentford, right? When they lost Rico Henry, right?
mm,
They can't progress the ball and create from that left hand side, and Brighton can't progress the ball and create from that left hand side. And I think that will dampen the attack. I think actually Fulham they have a chance at getting something here.
music to
I think
Combs' ears.
Brighton. Yeah, yeah. Finally, I think Brighton could be. I think we're overvaluing Brighton a little bit because we've seen their potential and we've seen how many goals they score and what they can do. But the uncertainty on the right hand side, who's going to play that winger, and the uncertainty at left back is just too much going on in this team for me to invest just yet. We'll learn a lot in this game though.
Yeah, like I'm looking now, Tarek Lamptey, Pervis Stupinian, both potential returns 4th of November. That's great. Yeah, either both, neither, or one of them could be back to play in that left back position. We just don't know. Like we have no idea. And,
It's
yeah,
it's
this
this,
is
that,
just,
or the other. Cool.
and we know this is a manager who can literally play anyone anywhere. Yeah, that is too painful for me. Cool. Let's go to the next matchup: Liverpool versus Forest. Can Mo Salah do it again? Can he get a brace for the third game week consecutively? People have been debating that he's not actually been pulling up trees and his scores have been flattering him because of the penalties and him being peripheral or whatever.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of salty tears out there in the community, as they say. So Liverpool's NetxG is 2.0. Nottingham Forest is 0.72. Liverpool's attack 5.1 on the FDR, minus 1.1 for Forest. This looks like a pretty comprehensive Liverpool victory. I still personally see Forest scoring. Sorry to Mariner, who I think bought in Simicast this week. So just I don't want to rain on your parade when you got over 100 points in a single game week. I'm not happy with you. That's why you fly up the mini league. I'm not going to talk about your overall rank, Gabe. We'll end the poll later, but the three of us had been close to each other in a certain mini league every week. And we were like there together near the bottom of said mini league, me and you and him. And then last week, he just kind of rocketed. Like I had to go to a different page of the mini league to find him. And I even DM'd him on WhatsApp and was like, man, what a great, huge green arrow. Like, I was like, I got to say something. Like, he's so far from me and you now that his season's kick-started after all the anger he had about how shit it had been going. He
Wait, Mariners beating us?
Badly now. Last game week, he just slapped us around. Like he made like a 30, 40 point gain on us just in 1 week last week.
Well, 20 on me, but
mine was worse. But yeah, so what are your thoughts here? Because obviously we've got a lot of Salah owners. Some people still have Diaz as well. I mean, see people talking about selling him for a Brighton mid, a West Ham mid, an Arsenal mid. I don't know if I could sell Diaz in this fixture. Is that whole delta you were talking about again?
Yeah, that delta. I think there's a DS game too. Rather than a Salah game, I think Salah will turn more creator in this game, and it'll be DS just kind of smoking Serge Aurier. Did you see Serge Aurier's attempt at clearing the head ball? It looks like a dolphin or something. It's so good.
I love Serge Aurier.
But I also think Salah gets a pen. I just think he's gonna get a
he's
pen.
Just gonna keep getting...
I think Diaz creates a pen for Salah in this one. I think Aurier is the clown of the match. I mean, you got to get in on Liverpool attack. Yeah, I think really good call going with Salah. But if you have Diaz, I think you hold Diaz, and I think it's hard to sell anybody for Diaz because again, you're selling a good asset. But I like the way the tactics line up for Diaz in this one. We see like how Forest kind of have they concentrate these 4 players on their left defensive zone. And then after they make the subs, those players are even more compact. I expect this is how they played against Luton, right? But I expect that dynamic to kind of play out against Liverpool, as they try to contain Salah. And when they do that, look at the space in midfield that opens up from the pre-subs to post-subs average position map there, and then look at the space that opens up on that left-hand side for DS, and I think DS will capitalize thanks to that.
That is quite exciting as if you had Diaz now. What about, I guess, cheeky captaincy differentials? I'm sure we'll see the metric later, but Diaz, as you mentioned, but also as our good friend Black Screen says, Darwin as well, which he says could be an outside captain shout. Chris, obviously, Mariner himself says Charles Darwin, so that shows you his age, but sorry,
his age. And Black Screen says obviously, because who in the right mind would captain Darwin Nunez?
It's like asking you that is like trying to get blood out of a stone. You're never going to say it's a good idea to captain Darwin Nunez.
I'd captain Charles Darwin before I captain Darwin Nunez.
Yeah, exactly. I think that says it all. We did say that if he was going to start being the starter, like he was quite an exciting option to look at. I think with the kind of the international break and the late travel, I think I'd said to you at the time, like I just didn't want to go there. There's now another international break again. I think maybe at some point this season I'll consider him as a double up in the attack, but for now I really like Luis Diaz more between the two. I think I would sooner captain Haaland than Darwin this week for sure.
I sooner captain a lot of players than Darwin. I mean, why do we think Darwin will even start?
Well, Blackstreet says really positive quotes from Klopp about Darwin this week. So I'll go read those quotes.
When has Klopp criticized Darwin? Klopp doesn't criticize Darwin.
Sure. It's not like when what do you call it? It's not like when Conte was there, like sending shots at Paul Richarlison in the media. Like he's like, yeah, he should be upset. He ain't scored shit. I'm like, who says that about their own player? He's like, he is shit. I'm like, well, bro, like that is so rude. Like, how you do that? Thank God that they got rid of that toxic old man and brought in Ange, who's everybody's good old mate, in it. Cool. All
Right.
right, let's keep going, I think, because we will talk about Liverpool, the Captaincy Metric. There's just one last massive game of the weekend, the Manchester Derby. Man
Derby.
United versus Man City, baby. Can United do it again? Can they take the points with a ghost Rashford offside goal and then never see it or before or after again? Will PGMOL and Howard Webb, who's back at the helm, be here to help their friends and long-time buddies? Or will Man City beat them this time round? What are your thoughts? I honestly think like this is like the times when Salah used to play United and then you like captain him and he gets 4 goals. I'm kind of concerned about the fact that I'm not captaining Haaland this week. Everyone jokes about, oh yeah, look, Haaland's got an easy fixture too. Like, I think so. Yeah, Maguire did great. He scored a goal and kept them in the Champions League last night. The manager's praising his vertical passes and his aggression, but I don't think they'd be choosing to start Maguire if there wasn't an injury crisis, right? Like, yeah,
Erling
like
Haaland against Maguire and Johnny Evans. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah,
It's so
it
easy. It's
seems
too
madness.
easy.
I'm gonna see what City do tonight in 30 minutes time, and just get an idea of.
I'm really looking forward to this match because I think the people that went without Holland and have benefited mostly because they captained Salah. I think that was the biggest benefit of going without Holland.
Mhm.
And obviously if that enabled Watkins, things like that, and fair play, like power to you. But I think this is the game week where those people start to get punished and things start to even out again. I don't think that was a bad decision. It obviously turned out to be a good decision, but I don't think keeping Holland was a bad decision. I think we find out this game week where you have Erling Haaland up against Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. Like it doesn't get much better than that.
And
Um,
Alvarez is rested tonight. They're saying
mm,
Chat Sport says the space Alvarez will get is going to be unbelievable. But there is news of Varane back, and that's a good point because I kind of brought him in on draft at some point when I thought his flag was going to be removed in some draft formats. I would feel more confident with a Varane and Maguire partnership. I guess is that what we're thinking it would
sure,
be?
of course.
Surely it would be Evans who drops out at the expense
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Varane being
Maguire
fit.
shifts to left center back, and
Yeah,
Varane plays right center back, and so Varane can cover space really well, and he reads the play well. But he's a slight boy. He's thin. He's not strong. He can get up in the air, but battling in the air is I don't know. I don't think he can battle with Holland. It would certainly improve Manchester United's defense, and yeah, it would make, I think it would change the matchup. It wouldn't make it so easy, but if it is
mm.
Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire, I think it's a downright easy matchup for Erling Haaland.
I can't wait to see where he ranks with Salah, the Spurs guys, the Arsenal guys, the fucking Villa guys, the Brighton guys. This is when you said at the start of the episode, like this is it. We're here for the fixtures turn. Like, my God, this is like Christmas came early for me. Like, I honestly feel like a kid in a candy shop. Like,
I
there's just
know.
too many options this week. There's a lot of conflicting views in the chat about Haaland's kind of viability as a captain this week. I think Hassan raises a good point about if it was a home game for City, he'd definitely be backing Haaland. But because it's
Yep, that's
away,
a fair
slightly
point.
changes that dynamic. Obviously, and United do generally turn up at home. You would think so. Let's see. I'm going to keep an eye out on the match tonight for Man City. See how many minutes Haaland gets. See what the pressers say. It's the early Friday deadline. At least I can make my bed and kind of just not have to be there on Saturday morning thinking about it. I just be done with it. Be done with it on
Yeah.
Friday and move.
Hassan's point is good because also because Manchester City away have they've just been played a lot more of a practical, pragmatic game. Get in there, get the controlled win, get your 2-0 and get out kind of thing. Whereas at home they do put on more of a show. So that is a fair point, and I don't have my captaincy on Holland as it is, so I hear that.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Okay, I am still starring questions, guys, as we go. So we've got about 15 questions I've starred for the end. This is obviously the last matchup. I think Bruno Rashford owners look away. I, I feel like every week's been the week for them to return. Bruno at least got his owners something last week, right, against Sheffield. So there is that. But Rashford has looked very poor for some time, and I feel for those who went for the double midfield and persisted for a long time, because that is painful, guys. I'm right there with you. I had Rashford right up until my wild card when I moved to Sun in Gameweek 8, and it's just painful. I would love this to be a draw personally, just from my perspective. Like, obviously, I would say that I would fucking love this. Any other big six clubs playing each other, I always want a draw. I don't care who they are, what position they might finish this season. I just want everyone who's going to be there or thereabouts in the top half to be dropping points every week. And like, I will take captaincy blanks to see that. For me, it's a club over FPL, but I know some of the content creators out there, they've been criticized for saying they would rather like win FPL than their club win the league and things like that. And even just on a game week by game week basis, they're happy to see like their team lose 3-1 because they have assets from the opposition. I would never go that far. I'll captain Haaland against Arsenal, but I'll pray he blanks and my FPL goes to shit. That's kind of
I mean, these are for people that are full-time content creators, though. Winning FPL basically solidifies that job for you and gives you financial stability, and so
your team might win the league another year, yeah. Whereas if you win FPL this year, you could like continue for this career for years, right?
Exactly.
Claire says, I got rid of Trashy in Game Week 8. I won't be going anywhere near Bruno. No. Haaland gonna whack United from Chris. Will Højlund get his first Premier League goal? Podner, thank you so much for asking this. I know he's one of the top goal scorers in the Champions League so far, so it feels mean to kind of criticize him for the lack of goals in the league. I think he is what United needed. He does look great. And I think the relationship with Rashford should improve. But we know what football Twitter's like, and they have been waiting like vultures for the last 3 seasons for any player that arrives ever since the Sancho meme from Sky Sports, where it's like 7 games, but it's like 0 goals, 0 assists, 7 games. 007 and Sancho in a tuxedo. So if Højlund doesn't score this weekend, he will be dubbed the new 007 of the Premier League. £70 million, 7 games, no attacking returns in the league. So I feel harsh saying that considering his Champions League success, but maybe by saying this, I'm jinxing it, and he will be the one to take down Man City for my beloved Gooners.
I think Erik ten Hag needs to wear that label,
the
007. Yeah, not Højlund. It's not Højlund's fault that he has a certain skill set that doesn't fit a certain weird ass philosophy of a crazy coach. So.
To be fair, Ten Hag's been given worse names, right? Like 7 Hag and stuff. So I think he's got his own nicknames now. So I feel
good.
But no, I genuinely want United to win this. I genuinely feel that they can only get better from here. And I think for a match like this, they're going to be raring to go. I really hope they come out the blocks and they give City a lot to think about. I just feel that this is a massive game in Manchester, and like, you know, even last season when they beat City, like you wouldn't have thought they would before the match. So it's kind of like, I do think anything can happen here, and I'm really here like rooting on the Red Devils this week. So please, guys, please just go do it.
Really quickly, just to finish up this matchup and we'll get to the questions. Hassan asks, what has happened to United? Because I'm struggling to understand how small changes in players have changed the way they seem to play. And we've been talking about this all season. Ten Hag has done several different things. He strengthened the spine of the team, then played wide with inexperienced players for a while. He's been playing Bruno in all sorts of positions instead of his best position and the best position for the team. Rashford has been incredibly out of form, just having a terrible season. And Højlund is a player that needs to get in behind opposing defenses. So he's trying to run in behind, but Rashford kind of does the same thing. And there's nobody linking the play to get those players in behind. So when they face deep defenses, there's no space to get in behind and there's no plan B. And all of this is Erik ten Hag's fault.
Sounds like a very good question and a very good summary so far. So that's him so far. Hopefully with a quarter of the season gone, they make some changes now. And Podner is right. So I think in the 9 league games they've played at Man United this season, they've had 7 different backline formations. Like, so that's just wild when I deep that. And I think they had like 13 to 15 first team injuries, and it's been chaos over there. So you got to think with people coming back, first of which we said Varane, Højlund himself was injured.
But it wasn't good before the injuries. It's not like they were good and then they got injuries and then they were bad. It was like they were shit, then they got injured, and now they have an excuse of why they're shit.
Funnily enough, it's the likes of McTominay and Maguire keeping them afloat with these clawing victories against the likes of
And
Sheffield. And
Johnny Evans, that ball to Bruno, that
yeah,
assist to
like
Bruno
this is
from
what I mean. So
Johnny
when you think
Evans,
about it, it's
crazy
like the
shit.
injuries led to the players who actually pulled them out of the hole in a way.
Yeah.
Let's go to a quick game week 10 matchup summary. If you want to do maybe some of the highlights just for the game week, and we'll timestamp this as 1 hour 30 for anyone listening on podcast. If you want to just see all 10
Yeah.
of the matchups.
Yeah, so we're just really quickly at the top, we have Aston Villa 5.6, Liverpool 5.1, and Brighton 4.3. Those are the three standouts for the FDR and attack. NetxG, Villa again, so the double up, confirming that. Newcastle for NetxG at 2.3. Villa was 2.7, and then Liverpool 2.1 are the top three from that perspective. The top zonal matchups of the game week, we have Arsenal's left 5.1. Brighton's left 4.9 and Manchester City's left at 4.7. The central matchup, we have Brighton 4.9, City 4.5, and Arsenal 4.2. We'll throw in there. And the right zonal matchup again, Arsenal's lit up all three of the zones. 4.9 for Arsenal, 4.7 for Villa, and 4.6 for Bournemouth. Interestingly, on the right with Chelsea, a close fourth there. So yeah, come check it out. You'll see kind of like all of the big matchups. You can check out the XG matchups, the big chances matchup, shots on target, shots in the box, and headed matchup, of course. Let's just go really quickly. Biggest headed matchup, 3.4 for Arsenal, 3.5 for Palace, and 3.4 for Chelsea.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's perfect, man. Thank you. I think the next one to do will be the next 5 matchup summary. I think that'll be really powerful for anyone who might be wildcarding this week to get a view of that. So just again, here we have all the data, the FDR, the zonals for the left, center, right, and the matchups themselves with the headed matchups in here too. But it's over the next 5. So in terms of the best ones, we've got Newcastle attacking wise is 17 FDR, followed by
Yeah,
Liverpool.
for those on
16.
Wildcard.
Yeah, this is a big one, right? So 17
Yeah.
Newcastle attack in the next 5, 16 Liverpool attack, 13.6 Brighton attack, 11.8 Villa attack, 10.3 Brentford attack, and then 9.8 Arsenal, 9.4 Everton, 8.6 West Ham, 8.1 Spurs. So you can start to see that when you go beyond just this game week 10 matchups, that delta may improve for some of those moves that we were talking about, like the Spurs players for like a Brighton maybe attacker or an Arsenal attacker. Interestingly, Arsenal's attacking FDR isn't quite really up there compared to a lot of the other teams like Liverpool and Newcastle. Defensively, real quick, the top 5 there as well. So we have 5.3 for Newcastle again. So they're topping both attack and defense for the next 5 on the FDR. So that's interesting. And 5.3 is huge. Like the next team's defense after them is Arsenal on 2.2. So like you go from 5.3 to 2.2. That does not make me feel good about this whole no Trippier shit we were just saying. Oh no. Oh no. Maybe that's what I do. Maybe instead of burning transfers, I burn out on my team for Trippier somehow this week. Gosh, that is painful. So after Arsenal's 2.2, the next the third for the defensive FDR in the next 5. We've got Man City at 1.7. Not seeing anyone talking about going there for the defense, especially with United in the short term. I think I would not be looking to go there myself either. Crystal Palace 0.7. Maybe some Johnston, Anderson, Gahey, Mitchell owners are out there, or maybe an Anderson is a nice punt as that kind of defender to have with Areola instead of having a West Ham defender too. And West Ham's defensive FDR for the next 5 is minus 9.6. Is actually like 3rd worst in the entire league, which does not feel great for double defense of West Ham. That is saying something. I'm trying to see who else is as bad. The people who are as bad as them are like Luton Town minus 17, Fulham minus 16, Wolves minus 9, Forest minus 9. Like they're all kind of together there, bunched up in red.
West Ham, Wolves, and Forest. So if you're considering West Ham defenders, you might as well consider Wolves or Forest defenders, and you're not going to do that.
And Sheffield and Luton, sorry. So all of those are together. Yeah. Like, yeah, my God. So yeah, that is not the one I want to be looking at. Let's do the captaincy jingle and get the metric up next, I think. Just going to timestamp this for anyone who wants to come back and look at the details of the captaincy metric from the podcast. We are at 1 hour 34 and 30. So if you just take that in 1 second. So there we go. I would ask you all, please, if you've enjoyed the show, if you've been with us for the last 90 minutes, or if you've just tuned in, do hit that like button if you've learned anything new, if you found it entertaining, or if you just want to say thanks. We would really appreciate it. But otherwise, let's go straight to the captaincy metric for game week 10. The Pharaoh is here again, topping the metric at 93. Salah himself, Watkins at 91 on the captaincy metric. Haaland, big drop down to 81 in third. Odegaard 81. Isaac 80. Bowen is up here at 79. And Darwin 77. Black screen. Maybe you were onto something. Saying that, there's also Diaby, Trippier, Mitoma, Alvarez, Son, Sterling, and Mbeumo. Kind of capping out that top of the captaincy metric for game week 10. So initial thoughts are that it looks like Salah and Watkins are both leading the pack on 93 and 91. Haaland is not a consideration for me this week. And not seeing a single Arsenal player here, that does concern me a little bit. So, but equally, I don't really see any Brighton players. And those are like the two midfielders I'm looking to buy for Spurs players. Now, Son is here in the metric. So, and I've already said I don't think I'll be selling him. But Maddison is not here.
Mitoma's there.
Oh, he is. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
He's above Son.
Okay. So maybe Maddison to Mitoma is more of what I should be looking at than Saka. Maybe that's where I need to be going. The attacking FDR in the next 5 for Brighton look great.
Yep.
It's that kind of how are these teams impacted? Brighton with their injuries, Arsenal with maybe Jesus' injury, for example. There's so much context you need to add that the data alone is not enough. But as it stands, I'm on Salah captain on my bus team. The metric has just reaffirmed that. But I asked you earlier in the show, can lightning strike 3 times? Or is that just a gambler's fallacy? Yeah, Ode is in the list, Claire. I don't know, you have him actually. You did say earlier in the episode. So fair play. He's just not someone I'm even considering buying because, as I said, he is like in the worst form this season. Like I honestly would not be shocked to see him like sit a game out at some point and someone else play his position.
I have to say, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he had a rough game against Chelsea, but we talked about that last week. Like he was going to face those Chelsea center mids, and it was not a game for him. We predicted that in the matchups. Yeah. So I understand why Odegaard is there.
Because I think for me, it's about his finishing. So what I want to say is more about his finishing. So like when he first arrived, you remember like when he came on loan and that first spell when it became permanent, he'd find himself in these opportunities to get the shots off, and he just like wouldn't get them on target. He'd try too hard or be a bit too high, or he'd overthink it. Then last season, he suddenly found this incredible goal scoring from far out, like on the edge of the box, and he was really getting them in perfectly positioned, doing unreal stuff. And it just feels like this season when I see him shoot, I don't know if it's a confidence thing again, but like his shot against, I think I was watching yesterday, either against Chelsea or against Seville or both. I saw him skyrocket one of those that last year he just kind of was comfortably positioning. And it's that little thing there that puts me off. So the metrics are good, but I'm like, just with my eyes when I'm watching him, something feels off with his shooting. I think he's trying too hard is what I'm getting at. I've seen him get frustrated at the lack of Arsenal's fluidity going forwards. He's getting less touches deeper than he was last year. So when he ultimately gets the touches higher up the pitch, he's kind of like quickly going to the shot, but they're not the shots he was making last year. They're not as good. So something just feels off for me personally. That's my perspective. So, but you are right. These games were tough games against Chelsea's midfield, for instance, and Sevilla away.
I don't think Odegaard is whatever. He's not a captaincy option this week. I think it's Salah, Watkins, Haaland.
And
that's
kind of Son.
Right?
I would still put Son in there, but I don't really like that Friday night Palace Selhurst pot. Yeah, Salah's home. Watkins is home. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm happy to keep Son this week, but yeah, maybe it's not a captaincy for me. What are you guys going for in the chat? Let us know who you captaining. I'm going Salah, I think. Watkins is a late, like Salah. In my mind, it's like if I really lose the plot, maybe I'll captain Watkins, but I doubt it.
Yeah,
Personally,
I'm going
I thought
Salah
we
as
go to the
well.
Q&A. So there's 50 of you
Okay.
here now. Lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As I mentioned before, please do hit that like
We'll
button
try to
if you
get out
enjoyed the
before the
show.
Champions League game starts.
Exactly. We've only got 10 minutes. We're going to go through these
10
questions.
minutes.
We've
Let's
started them all. We're
fire
going to be
through.
quick. So let me just quickly there's a couple questions from the Discord, from the YouTube members and the Patreons. So we'll quickly read those out before we go. So we have one from Dom Black Dragon. He says he's showing us Ollie Watkins' next 5, Luton, Forest, Fulham, Spurs, Bournemouth. He says, with fixtures like this in the next 5, is a -8 worth it? Or should I do the unspeakable Haaland out, Watkins in? What do you feel about Haaland out, Watkins in with Watkins next 5? Or just -8 is your only other route to Watkins? I think you're in a similar situation and you're doing neither, right? You're just going to avoid.
Yeah. So really quickly, I just think that it goes back to what we've been talking about all show, and it's what's the delta from Haaland to Watkins? Like, are you too fixated on a player that you want instead of a player that you need to get out of your team? I'd say like times like these, like there are players that we're gonna have to go without. You can't have Salah, Haaland, Watkins, Bowen,
Trippier, yeah, like all of
Son,
these players.
Trippier, Madison. You can't have these players. So if maybe you're not going with Watkins, but you're doing
So like
you're doing
not
some other things,
panicking
for
and going for
example.
-8, that's not the route. And I
There
think
there are a lot of
Haaland to
like don't
Watkins,
sell your good assets.
yeah,
Just fix the problems on your team.
fine. I think Haaland to Watkins as well. It seems that people who use that FPL review and stuff, they say that Haaland wasn't in as many of the wildcard 8 solves they did. But now, if you look at
Yeah,
the wildcard 10 solves, he appears far more frequently. So it's almost like
yeah.
don't let the decision of like Watkins did the last 2 weeks and what Haaland did the last 2 weeks shape the future. Those things have
Good point.
happened. They're the past. They're gone. Don't panic and move in that direction just from what happened previously. And then the last question from Discord, and we'll do the ones in the Q&A in the chat. We have Blonde, who was actually our highest scorer this game week in the All or Nothing Members League. I think Blonde this week got 117 points, even beat Chris, who got 107 points, and a shout out to Podner in third this week, who had 102 points. So 3 of our
Amazing.
Centurions this week.
Good
Chris
for
saying,
Blonde. That's awesome.
Oh, Chris makes a good point on the captaincy metric. So Saka might not be here because of the flag. The injury flag's not been removed on FPL. And I know that obviously the metric really kills the minutes because it's got average minutes here as one of the metrics. And if he's on like 5, then or 0, then he's never going to appear at the top
If
of
he's
this list.
flagged, he won't show up. But I would imagine he shows up actually
Around
higher
maybe where
than Odegaard.
Odegaard is. Yeah, just one above or
Yeah,
two. So he'd be there next
just
to
under
Haaland,
Haaland, something
Watkins,
like
Salah.
that. Yeah,
Fine. Cool. That sounds good to me. So we've got Claire is going Watkins captain for now, vice captain Salah. Podner saying you can't have Haaland if you have all the others. That is true. You can have nearly every player you listed, Gabe, if you don't have Haaland.
yeah.
So that
If you
is a
don't have
route.
Haaland,
It is viable. Claire's question was captain Watkins or Salah in game week 10. She says the draft pound data says captain Salah and have Odegaard as vice captain. So the draft pound data agrees with Mariner's Odegaard shouts here, but we'll leave that drunk data alone. I think that's cool that you're on Watkins right now, Claire. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think Watkins is my vice captain. So yeah, let's go to the questions in the actual chat today. So we'll go to the 2 talking heads real quick. So Nehal, if you could only get one of Saka or Watkins, these are definitely quick fire now because Champions League kicks off in 8 minutes. Nehal, if you could have only one of Saka or Watkins this week, which one will you prioritize?
Watkins.
I think Watkins for me as well, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but K7 question, which option, Adingra or Palmer? I need funds. Oof. I like Palmer longer term. I like Adingra in the next 5. Depends how long like this enabler staying.
Maybe if he starts. So Palmer, because you're just more sure what
You're
he's
more
going to
sure
be,
of
and then
his
he's going
start,
to
right?
start. Yeah,
Sorry, I've just
yeah.
dropped something at the same time.
And Pens is
That's a
just nice.
massive difference, right?
4.9 million with Pens is
The
so
lack
nice.
of Europe for Chelsea, the European
Yeah,
rotation with Brighton. Yeah, I think Palmer. Let's go Palmer. Another question from K7. Which option, Neto and Madison being sold for Palmer and Saka, or Porro and Madison to Gabriel and Saka? Oof, oof. I personally prefer the Neto and Madison to Palmer and Saka, personally, but I don't see anything wrong with getting Gabriel and Saka long term, but I don't see much. I don't know, like Porro to
I
Gabriel. Like I just don't know. I
I
see
just
more
do I
upside
just
in
do
Porro
Porro. I do Porro to Gabriel and roll a
and
transfer.
roll.
But
You would roll,
yeah,
yeah. I know.
I would roll the other transfer.
That's fair. Who should we prioritize to bring in from Nick Khan as well? Saka or Watkins? I think we're both saying Watkins. Who to
Watkins,
start from K7? Burn or Gabriel?
Gabriel.
I think the home match is what does it for me. It's
Yeah.
Wolves away, obviously, for Newcastle. So, yeah. Multi asks Foden to Martinelli an option if you can't afford Saka or so. I think we covered this
We
earlier
did this
actually in
one.
the
Yep.
Arsenal
We
timestamp.
answered
So,
this one.
and we also covered this one from. I think some of them I started, but then we actually covered at the time. Multi asks Foster, so Lyle Foster instead of Archer for wildcarders. I don't know if I'd want to spend that extra. They both play, and I'd be intending on using neither of them ever, unless like they literally come on for someone pulling up injured in the warm up. Like I have zero
Yeah.
intention to start either of those players personally. So I would go Archer to save just over 500,000. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Rajat asks, so happy to finally have Salah for the first time this season. Who is the best Arsenal asset for the next 5 game weeks out of Saka, Gabriel, and Raya? I think based on the FDRs we saw in the next 5, I would go for Saka ahead of both of the defenders. But I know you're probably more of a fan of Gabriel, so we probably are in those situations where I want Saka, you want Gabriel, but you have Raya, right? So you already have Raya.
I have, yeah, I have Raya, and I'm happy to have Raya. I think it depends who you're selling.
Yeah,
My
that's
sense
true.
is you're
Let
probably
us know,
selling
Raja.
someone good for Saka. So again,
That's the
back to
thing,
that
yeah.
theme of
If you told me
Gabriel.
you're selling some random player that you don't know why you still have, then sure, like, but I'm assuming it's a Spurs mid. Multi-Livy also Foden to Bowen or Martinelli long term until game week 18. I hate to say it, but I'd probably go Foden
Bowen.
to Bowen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Worth taking a -4 from Hassan to go Udogi to Gabriel. I wouldn't take that -4, no.
Not for the hit.
If it was free transfer, I'd be open to it. Hassan also asked thoughts on Newcastle double defense. The defensive FDR for the next 5, it's got them top by a distance. Like the next defense after them is considerably weaker, so I think that's perfectly viable. Adingra or Palmer? I think we said Palmer already from Nick. This is a painful one. So this is where we end the poll, Gabe. This question almost tees it up nicely. So we put a poll at the start of the episode. There's been 50 votes. Gabriel wasn't going to look at his live rank all season until game week 10, the end of game week 10. We asked at the beginning of the episode, should he look at his rank as he had planned once game week 10 is over, or should he not? And should he extend the period he won't look at it? After 51 votes, 61% are saying to yes, look at your rank after game week 10 ends,
Wow.
and 39% are saying no. So I've ended the poll now. That is over. And because of that, Hassan, I can't
Okay.
really tell you Gabe's rank because I also want him to wait till game week 10's over so he finds out himself. So I don't want him to know.
I can go on mute for a second.
As
No,
long as you don't hear it,
we'll come, Hassan, come back next week.
come
We'll
back
come to
next
the
week
ranks
and we'll
next
give you
week.
the proper ranks. Because I feel like by telling you my rank or Chris Mariner's rank or Gabe's rank, you're going to have to guess where Gabe is from it, and we don't want him to know.
You've already
But the
told me
ultimate
that Chris is
story is,
spanking us, and
yeah, Chris is spanking us. But if you want to know, we're all doing shite, basically, Hassan, and you shouldn't take any of our advice. I know that's not a clever thing to say, but we had our highs. I remember the year Chris finished 122nd in the world. He was up at 21 overall rank as a live rank. I finished 895 in the world. You know, there was a time when we were good at this godforsaken game, me and Mariner, and you as well. We were all getting top 100K. That was our target, but we were achieving and overdoing that target. But not anymore, not this season. Hopefully things change. Game starts in 1 minute. We're going to get out of here. There's just a couple questions to go. This is just a comment from Colm. He doesn't have Son or Salah. He likes Saka as a captain, but will probably go Watkins 90%. I think I'd feel the same.
go Watkins.
And then FPL Discomfort. Would you downgrade Son to an Arsenal mid if it meant you can change Hoyland to Watkins? Or would you move Diaby down to an Adingra Louise and keep Son? Ooh. Diaby has a fan. I would not be selling Diaby before Luton.
No.
No chance, unfortunately. If you have 2 free transfers and you have to make the move, I prefer your Son to Arsenal mid move than all the ones I'm seeing on the timeline, because theirs are just Son to Arsenal mid. Yours actually gets you Watkins. I think that's the
Yeah,
key thing here. In a match where
that's
Højlund
true.
plays City and you could get Watkins in for Luton and get Saka, I think I'd go that way, discomfort, bro. And then
Yep.
last question from Hassan, or it might be a comment, and then we'll go. He says, as an Arsenal fan, Saka's been overhyped as an FPL. I said these last few weeks, he's looked predictable, takes far too long on the ball. Martinelli looks much more sharp. I think Martinelli's Arsenal's best finisher. I've said this for some time, and I think he adds a new dimension we've been sorely missing. I just want to see more, and I want to see if Jesus is fit. So I just, with the information on Jesus not out there, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't know who to sell Maddison for. Clint, 2 free transfers. I've got 2 free transfers. I'm going to be real with you. I'm probably going to have Saka come the deadline for Maddison and keep Son. So I can only tell you what I'm going to do, and that's definitely something I am going to do. So cool. All right, guys. Let's get out of here. And thank you everyone who tuned in. 1 hour 50 minutes. It's lovely to do the Q&A and see everyone enjoy the Champions League tonight. Go have some fun. And don't forget the Friday deadline. And we will be back next week on Tuesday, as always, for the review with Lucian and Gabe. And also on Wednesday for the Gameweek 11 matchup show by this point. So the season's flying by. Any final thoughts? Any final comments?
Really quickly for the haulers with the Friday deadline, it's a lot easier for me to jump in the Discord hangout. So maybe we can get some people, some haulers in that Discord hangout this Friday if someone's available. I'll be in there myself. So yeah, be looking forward to connecting with some of you haulers.
Lovely stuff. And we are going out of here, Gabe. I promise it's exactly 8 on the dot. But I have to thank the haulers on the way out the door. So I'm going to do the fastest readout I can. Thank you to all our super haulers, David Harrison, Zach, Carber Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, FPL Robbie. Our haulers, Dread FPL, FPL Craig, Podner, Kevin Rose Safa, C Hunt, Donny FPL, Oscar Arias, FPL Teacher, Blonde, S Scottizen, Tom Gorsuch, Devindra Raj, Lindsay O, FPL DG Boy, Akshay, Dom, Claire FPL, Catherine A, William the Jaeger, Harry Not Kane, Neil, Sebastian Koo, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Robert Ducky, Neil's Apples, Nick Calm, Big Mike, FPL Discomfort, General Zod, Gladys Street Preachers, Jack M, FPL Planner, Jamie Baker, Brett M, and Mark Bond. Couple missing off the screenshot. Unfortunately, some new haulers, FPL Eric, Tursk S coming back, and Jaskrin Singh. Thank you all. And our 6 Patreons, Elron, Lucy and Gann, FPL California, Finger Bob, Brom Frost, and Mike Burke. Thank you all for all your support and everything you do. And we will see you next time. And shout out to Blonde especially, who was topping the All or Nothing mini league, as we mentioned. So that's a big one there. Lovely to see everyone. I've put the wrong thumbnail up as we get out of here. It would have been Net That Haul without that. But great to see you all. Have a lovely game week and enjoy the Champions League tonight. Cheers.
Peace.